You can hear me. All right. Okay, so I was explaining what we have for today. We're going to be covering basic installation, introduction to Jupyter Notebook environment, introduction to Python programming, variables and data types, and then part of lists. So that's what we have for today. So according to the agenda, I'll be training for 30 minutes, after which there'll be a quiz break for 5 minutes. I'll do 30 minutes training, quiz break for 5 minutes, another 30 minutes training. Then we'll have an open forum at the end where we can ask questions. All right. So right now, I was trying to show you all how to go about your installation. There's a video on the LMS that shows how to install Anaconda distribution. I was explaining earlier that Anaconda is an ID, an integrated development environment that houses several softwares. And one of the software is Jupyter Notebook and Python IDE. All right, so when you install Anaconda, automatically it installs Python, Jupyter Notebook, and so many other softwares like Jupyter Lab, VS Codes, and the like. But for the sake of this class, we'll be focusing on Jupyter Notebook. So I was asking as many persons that have installed Anaconda or Jupyter Notebook, you could just drop an emoji on the chat so that I have an overview of people that already have it installed. However, I'll just quickly go over some of the basics of the installation in case you have any issues installing. Great, Umar, thank you. All right, so let me go back to my screen. When you follow that video, you're going to download Anaconda, follow the installation process. If you've successfully installed it properly, it will be easy for you to access Anaconda on your system. So I'm going to show you how to load Anaconda on your system. And usually there is a prompt, like a command prompt that comes up with the Anaconda installation. So instead of you going through the IDE, the user interface of the Anaconda environment, you could just go through your system and search for Anaconda prompt. So I'm going to navigate to my system and search for Anaconda prompt. Sorry. Okay, so when you go to your system, you search for Anaconda prompts. When you click on Anaconda prompts, it brings up like a DOS environment. So you can type Jupyter Notebook. When you type Jupyter Notebook, when you click enter, it loads up a browser. So Jupyter Notebook is like a simulated local, it's an application that works on the browser. It works on your local directory. And what the notebook does is that it has it's an interface where you can code alongside, you can also do markdowns. So if I were you, I'm going to create a folder on my own system, on my local system. Like this is simulating all the folders you have on your system. You could see desktop, good documents, and all of that. So you could create a folder on your desktop, for instance, after which you could just, I have my own documents on data science bootcamp, right? So I can create that folder, then I navigate to that folder and create whatever new documents inside that folder. All right, so when you go to that particular folder, you can create a new Python file by going to new at the top right corner, and you see Python 3 IPyCanal. So when you click on Python 3 IPyCanal, it launches a new Jupyter Notebook environment. So this notebook environment is where you could actually do your coding, basic codings, and markdowns. So on Jupyter, on the Jupyter environment, we have the code cell. Where you have the in is the code cell. So this particular cell, this is where you can do all your Python codes and the likes. But if you want to do a text format, I'm going to be showing you quickly examples of some of the markdowns. You could just change it to a markdown and do some markdown formatting. The first hash stands for the first H tag. For people that are familiar with HTML, or I'm sure we must have related with Markdown one way or the other, like when we use WhatsApp and Telegram, we have some Markdown commands that we are familiar with. So it's similar to what you do there. That means, you do the same thing here. All right, so the first hashtag is like the biggest H tag. This is the biggest. So when you do Shift Enter or Command Enter, you can see that you're having a markdown, like a markdown format displayed on your Jupyter Notebook. So that's basically the interface for the Jupyter Notebook. So I'm going to be taking you through, there is a module that was attached on the LMS. I don't know how many persons came across that notebook. Is on the LMS. Let me navigate to the LMS. It's right under this video. So when you go to the module, you download. This is the notebook I'm currently working on. So when you go to this notebook, so this notebook is actually a very beautiful display of the use of markdowns. Like here, you could use it for presentations as well as you could do some codings on. This is the code cell. So all of this cell, that's the first cell, this cell is a markdown cell. By the time I run it, I double click on it, you can see all of the formats written in codes. But when you load that particular cell, you can see that the display has changed. So Jupyter Notebook is very great. It's a great tool where you could easily display your notebook formats. You could present your documents in a very, very unique style. All right. So I'll be taking you through some basic formats. Here you could see that this is an H tag, H1 tag. Or H2 tag. You can see the double hash means you want to reduce the size of that particular phrase or word. So here, if you want to make a very, very big H tag, you could use a double hash. Then if you just want to write an ordinary text element, you could use just your normal write up. Then if you want to do like a bullet, you could use the star. So we have all of these codes in Markdown. By the time I load it, you can see that you're having it's well formatted here. So having this Markdown helps you to easily present your ideas to your audience. Now, another thing I want to talk about is links. When you want to present a link, you could just do the name, that's the link, http or www.anaconda.com/download, and then automatically the link appear. Okay, so for images, now when we load this cell, you can see some nice and beautiful images here. This is an image. This Jupyter image is an image on my laptop. So when I go to the original directory, that is this where I loaded this document from, there's an image folder. Now, this is the notebook I'm working on, Module 1 Python Jupyter Notebook. All right, so this is the image folder. And in that image folder, there are several other images. So when you are you want to display, for example, I want to display a1.png on the notebook I'm currently on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Markdown. And then there's this format that says exclamation mark. Then this is like the name of the image. Now let's take notes. This can be anything. This can be anything. So what this does is anytime this image is missing, this is what will be displayed to the user. All right, so here I want image.png to be displayed. So here you put what you want to be displayed to the user in this square braces. Then here you're going to put the image directory. Take note that the directory that we have a1.png is images, and that's why you're referencing it as image/a1.png. If you have this in, maybe you have the images in another folder, you just reference that folder as well. So that is how to display your image. So when you load this, it's going to display that particular image. All right. I hope we've gotten that. We'll have time to ask questions at the end of the class. Okay, so very quickly, I'll just take you through some other basics. Okay. I just explained the Markdown cell, so I'm going to show you some things on the code cell as well. Now, Python, we'll be going through some introduction to basic Python programming very quickly. But before then, I just want to show you how to use this Jupyter Notebook. So like I said earlier, you're in this particular cell is your code cell. That's where you write your code. For example, you want to write a code. Just think about when you're coding, think about it like a calculator. Like you're giving it some set of instructions to perform, and then it's going to give you the output you desire. So when you're programming, for example, I want to add 1 + 1 together. You could just say 1 + 1 you know that is 2, right? And because this is a code cell, automatically it acts like a calculator and it returns your outputs to you. Okay, so 1 + 1 here, because this is a code cell, to load it, you do Shift Enter, and then it loads that particular cell for you. You could have other complex code like what you expect the calculator to give you, and then it returns the answer. So this is your inputs and this is your output. So if you want to add a markdown on top, you could just click an a plus, it has it on there. If you want to insert a cell, you could just click on insert cell above, and it inserts it for you. So you could change this code cell to a markdown, and then you could just say something like, this is a simple arithmetic operation. And then you're having your file well displayed. Okay, so this is a code cell. I'll be going over operations later. I just want to show you the different markdown formats. This is the first level of the H tag, the second level, the third level, the fourth level. So you're going to notice that as you add the hash, it reduces the font of what you are displaying. Okay, then we have other markdowns, like we have the single line comments and all of that. So if I change some of this to, this is an italics, and by the time I load it, you notice that this is now in italics. Also, I want to make Grace italics. I can say my name is Grace, nice to meet you. And this is bold, double star is bold. So if you go through all of this formatting, it's easy to implement. So there are additional resources. There's a site you can go to markdownguide.com. Let me put it in the charts. So for additional markdown formats, you could also access that particular markdown. All right. Okay. So very quickly, I'll go through introduction to Python programming. If you have any question, just keep adding them to the Q&A, and we'll be looking at those questions at the end of the class. All right. So I'm going to go over to my window. And then we're going to be looking at Introduction to Python Programming. Okay, now I'm trying to load this particular cell. Who can tell me what is happening here? Why is it not loading? Can you just drop on the chat why I'm having this problem of loading this cell? Who can tell me what the problem is? Who can tell me what the problem is if you know? But if you don't know, let me just because of our time, let me just quickly go to why the problem. So if you take note of the format, now I'm in raw NB convert format. And that's why you're saying that this cell is not loading. I've been trying to load it, it's not loading. So when I change the format to Markdown from here, you can see that it has identified it as a Markdown, and I load it, and you can see I have a very beautiful interface here. So Jupyter Notebook enables you to present your report. For example, maybe you're doing a code, maybe you're doing maybe some sort of competition, or you want to do a report for your company. You could use Notebook because with this you can convert to HTML, can convert it to an HTML page and attach it somewhere on the website. You could convert it to PDF. And you have so many other conversion formats. You could print it as well. All right, so very quickly, we'll be looking at the basics of Python programming. What is Python? Why are we doing Python? And what's the relevance of Python to data science? All right, so like we all know that we are here for data science, data analysis. If you were in the orientation yesterday, someone asked a question about the difference between data science, data analysis, and machine learning. So we're going to keep that question till our mentorship session. So during the mentorship session, we'll be treating some more soft skill issues, want to know some basics. But here we just want to go straight to what we have to do, right? So, but then for you to do data science, and if you want to be a very strong data analysis, it's recommended you learn how to code with Python, because Python is a very, very good tool. It's an object-oriented programming. It's language. It is easy to use. It has several libraries. So many sophisticated systems are built on Python. And then you could easily use it for machine learning as a data science. So it has several functionalities if you know Python very well. All right. So I'm not gonna bore you with so many of these notes because we have it linked in our classroom. All right. So have a link in our classroom. I'm not going to bore you with any of this, so we can go straight to what we have for today. But I want you to take note that learning Python is super fun and interesting. I tell you, as a beginner, if you're starting off with Python, you're starting off with something very, very great. When I started learning programming, I started with Java, and I was like, is this what programming? Oh, no, I started with C++, and it was like Greek to me. I was wondering, is this what programming is all about? Afterwards, I moved to Java, and it was not. I mean, I was liking it, but then it was a struggle. But when I came to Python, I was like, wow, Python is so interesting. You want to print something in Python, you just use print and then you are good. But if you are using Java, you're talking about system.out.print line, and then you're printing it takes a lot of syntax. But then if you have a good foundation of Python programming, you could easily pivot to other languages if you want to go the software engineering route. But then for data science, for data analytics, for machine learning, Python is a very good soft programming language to learn. All right. So I will leave all of these stories for you to read up because of our focus for this class, and there are extra resources added to this file. So I'm going to be showing you some basic arithmetic operations. So like I said earlier on, think of programming like some set of commands that you are given a system to perform. Like, you know what exactly you want the system to do, and you're just giving it an instruction to do them. So you want the system to add 1 + 1 + 5 + 8 + 9 for you. And then you know that plus in Python as the symbol of addition in Python as the symbol of plus. So once you do that, it gives you the output. So also subtraction and multiplication. Multiplication is asterisk, division is slash. So take note, when you're dividing an integer, I'll be talking about variables and data types after our break. When you're dividing an integer with an integer, it's going to give you a float. I'm explaining what this means when we're talking about variables and data types. This is a power operation. That is, you want it to like 2 raised to power 3. That is 2 times 3 times 3. 2 times 2 times 2. That's 2 3 times. So that is what the power operation is. And then it gives you 8. It gives your output 8. All right. Then lastly, Python operation in Python follows the PEDMAS sequences of operation. So like we know of, from basic mathematics, we know of BODMAS, but in Python, we use PEDMAS. That is, power comes first. When you're executing this operation, right, brackets changes the order. But without the brackets, you're going to do the power first. That's 2 raised to power 3. That is 8 divided by 2. So it's going to give you, can you see it's a different answer? When you have 2 raised to power 3 over 2, it gives you 4.0. But if you're reordering it with your brackets, it executes 3 over 2 first, which is 1 point something, 1 point, it's one point something, I don't know. But then 2 raised to power 1 point gives you something else, 2.8.2. So you're kind of having to be order your operation using your bracket. But just take note of this operation. Power is executed first, followed by the exponential, which is the raised to power, followed by the division, multiplication, addition, and then subtraction. All right, so at this point, I'm going to stop. And we're going to have someone saying, you can't see my screen. Okay. All right. Yes, you can use Colab. You can use Colab if you don't have Jupyter Notebook. So we are going to quickly do a short quiz. I'm going to share my screen. We'll do a short quiz, and then we'll continue with what we have for today. All right. Let's keep the question coming. During Q&A, we would attend to the questions. Okay, someone's saying that my screen is not showing fully. Can you all see the full screen? All right, so it's time for a quiz. We're going to do a short quiz on Slido. I'm going to post the link. Okay, thank you, Oluwadami Fola. Okay, we have a Q&A link on Slido. If you have access, if I shared it via email, we shared it via email to you. So that's where we'll be gathering some of our question and answers outside this class. We understand that sometimes you might have questions outside the class. We're going to be gathering those questions. So that's, now there's a link, or there's a Slido link. All right, so I'm going to start up the quiz quickly so that we can access this quiz. You can all participate in the quiz. Let me present my screen so that you can see. Just go to that link on Slido. You see the quiz question, and then you can answer the question. Not the, okay, this is the submission. I'll give like 2 minutes. They're simple questions. I'll give like 2 minutes for us to complete that quiz, and then we can go to the next thing. The questions are very, very simple, right? You can see the question. Did you go to the link on Slido? These are the questions. Can you see the question? It's a countdown. It's a countdown. 6 minutes, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. All right. So the answer to the first question is okay. So that's the first question. We had 12 people voting for the first question, and then that is the answer. How do you display an image file.png within a folder named image in Markdown on Jupyter Notebook? Like I explained earlier, we have the exclamation mark, the name of the image, that is it could be anything, not necessarily image.png. Then because it's in an image folder, you have the folder name / the name of the file. All right. Okay. Now the next one. Okay, this is the leaderboard. We have Deji Ade. Please clap for Deji Ade, Doris, thank you, Clinton, Olayemi, and oh, okay, let's go to the next question. The next question locks in 20 minutes, 20 seconds. Can you see my screen properly? Okay. What does the Markdown format represent? This is a word. Now let us see the answer. The answer says italics. Can you try it in your on your system? Bold is double star. Most persons chose bold. Bold is double star. The answer says italics. All right, thank you, Kofi. As Adewale. All right, let's continue to the next one. So we have the final answer, the final question rather. So the next question, we have this this quick arithmetic operation. What does it equate to? Fastest fingers first. Okay. Now let's reveal the answer. Let's reveal the answer. The answer is minus 7.0. Who can tell me why it's minus 7.0? I know most people that said minus 7 got it right, but then minus 7.0 is the answer. I'll tell you why. All right. Thank you so much for this session. It was nice. It was a nice time with you all. Umar, Mohammed, thank you, Adewale, Kofi, Atetsuji, and everyone that participated. So we have Umar, Mohammed, Adewale, and Toro Kofi as our winners. All right, so let's get back to class. I hope you got one or two things from. Yes, thank you, Joseph. Because of the divide, I told you that if you're dividing an integer by another integer, you have a floating point number. All right. Okay, so let's get to our next task, what we are going to be learning. Okay, okay, so we'll be going right to variables and data types. Like I mentioned earlier, that Python, when you're learning a language, you have to learn some basics of the language. For example, if you want to learn English, you have to start from learning A, B, C, D, E, and then letter sounds, letter blending, and all of those things. So also in programming, you have to learn so many basic things so as to have a basic understanding of your what you're going to do at every point in time. So it's like a build up. So now we've learned about operations. We know how to do our arithmetic operation when we want to do our arithmetic operation. Now we want to look at variables and data types. So for every programming language, you have different data types. And what are data types? Data types are let me just use in a layman's language. They have to do with the format of data or a type of data that is acceptable for that language for Python. So in Python we have the scalar data type, or the basic scalar is basic scalars called the integer, the float, the Boolean, and strings. So I'm going to be showing you what this represents. I hope we can all see my screen. Hope my screen is not so small. If you can see my screen, just give me just react so that I'll be sure that we are on the same page. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's just continue. Okay, so we have different type of data types in Python. The first one I'll be talking about is integer. Integer are whole numbers like whole numbers, 1, 2, 1,500,000, anything that has to do with natural number, whole number, they are called integers. And just note that they don't have point, they don't have decimal after it. So that's why we call them integer. And there is a function. When we get to functions, you understand what I mean by function, but there's a function called type in Python. It helps you to check what's the data type of a particular variable. Yeah, so here, if I want to check the data type, is going to tell me that data type is an integer. That means integer. So when you see 100, 200, 300, anything whole number, it's an integer. All right, so but floating point numbers are numbers with decimal points, and it could be points, anything, but so long as you're saying anything points, it's a floating point number. So from with our type function, you can see that it's already returning the type of that particular variable. Now the booleans are they are data types that tell you whether something is true or false. So we are learning all of this because when we start doing control flows, we start writing functions, we understand why we are learning all of these different data types. So the boolean, they are kind of words that executes to whether true or false. In Python, the word true is called a boolean. Like if you have true, Python automatically knows that this is a boolean, boolean T, capital letter T, how you E. It has identified it. If you're using VS Code, you see it in another color, but here you can see it in deep green. It's telling you that this is actually a boolean. All right, and then we also have false. False is also a boolean. False. All right, and then another data type we have in Python is called a string. So strings are numbers. They are alphanumeric or characters encoded and enclosed in quotes. For example, your A, if you just write A, it's not going to see it as a string. It's seeing it as a variable. So I'm going to explain very quickly what a variable means afterwards. So this A is going to see it as a variable, it's telling you name is not defined. This is not a string. It becomes a string when you enclose it in a single bracket. When you enclose in a single bracket, Python is saying it as a string. Okay, and you can either use a single quote or the double quote. Either way, it's also saying it as a string. So your string is, you can use a single quote, the double quote. Some people use, there's this other quote you can also use. It also sees it as a string. This is a string as well. So when you see numbers, it could be character, it could be this is a boy. So by default, the single quote is used more often than the double quotes or the triple quotes. Yeah, so those are the basic data type you have in Python. So here I was just trying to explain what a function means. Like a function, we're going to be getting to function later, but for the sake of this class, I'll just leave that for now. Let's just focus on our variables and data type. So here you could see that I've explained earlier that type 100 is an int, 1.2 is a floating point number, and 1.0 is a float, 100.0 is a float. 100 points is also a float. So long as it has points, it's a floating point number. The name Victor is a string, blessing is a string, blessing is awesome is a string. All right. So now, having said that, we're going to be going to variables. What are variables? Variables are like placeholders. It's just like you having a box that houses something. So if you have a box and you want to put a pencil, crayon, or whatever inside, that box is like the variable holding whatever you're putting inside. So in Python, your variable names could be A is a variable, or it could be any other name that you want to name it. We have user-defined variables in Python, and we have some type variables that are already given in Python by basic. We have other variables that we have in Python, but then I'll be focusing on user-defined variables. So in the process of writing your codes, you would have to create variables. So for example, we've learned about addition, right? Instead of just writing 1 + 1 or 1 + 2 = 3, I want to write a code to add two numbers together. So I can say, let my first number be equals to 1, and my second number be to be equals to 2 or 3, 2, right? So this A is taking, you are seeing A is already storing 1 and B is storing 2. So instead of you writing 1 plus 2, you can just say A plus B. And then you can print the results. So I'm going to get to print. Print is like you like helping you to output your value. But here in Jupyter Notebook, you don't need to use print. But if you're using another Python ID, you might have to use print to see your answer. But in Jupyter Notebook, you could just do A plus B and to give you answer. But if I do print, you can see that it's equals to 3. So here you could see that this A holds number 1 and B holds number 2. So automatically your addition is seeing the value as 1, A as 1 plus B, which is 2, and then the answer is 3. So it's different from when you had just 1 plus 2 equals 3. All right. So the reason why we do variable assignments is because most times you might want to reuse your variable. For example, what I mean by reusing your variable, I want to add another variable called C, which is equals to 6. So instead of me having to rewrite 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 6, I can just use A plus B plus C. And then the answer is 9, because in memory, Python has already stored it as A, and 1 as A, B as 2, and C as 6, which is equals to 9. All right. So it's easy to easily work with values when you do variable assignment. And then sometimes you might have some variables that are always changing. They are dynamic variables when you start writing your functions and all of that. So in that case, you don't have to change all the positions where you have that variable. You just change your A, you can just set it to 6, right? And when you set it to 6 and you load this, you can see that the answer is now 8. And then when you load this, you can see that the answer is 14, because it has replaced the value that was there before with a new value, and then you have 14. All right. So that is about variable assignment. And there's another thing called naming convention. So when you're naming in Python, you're forming your variable name. Usually you use the first name underscore, like you could use words underscore. You can't start your variable name with 5, or you can't start it with exclamation marks. There are some symbols that you can't start your variable name with. It's going to see that something else. So usually you just start it with a string, a character, then you have your name. So you can give your variable name any name. All right. So just like I have A plus B, I'm saying first norm is equals to 7, second norm is equals to 3, and then you have first norm plus second norm equals 10. All right. So here your variables can be anything. Your variable can hold integers, your variable can hold floats, your variable can hold strings, it can hold booleans. So you can, what I mean is that you can say A is equals to 1, B is equals to 5, C is equals to, this is a float, 6.7, D equals to string, floating point number, then you can have a string. Awesome. Yeah. And then these are your variable names. I can say print A. You have one, you can say print B, print C, print D. So All right, so you can see that your variable name can be anything. You can use your variable name as anything when you're when you're creating your variable. All right, so this is a string. Lesson is awesome, and then the name is already it's saying lesson is awesome as a name, and that's why you have this name printed. So I'm having to go over this for the people that are beginners and intermediates. You just have to go along with us, because for people that they are novice, they've not coded before, they need to understand this basic because of where we are going to. All right, so moving forward, right? Still on variable names, you could have other variable names like state lag is equals to Lagos, state ABJ is equals to Abuja, name is equals to roots, animal is equals to dog. These are just samples of variable name. And if you want to print them, you do print states. For example, if I load this and I want to print the state lag, I can just do print state lag. And then it gives me Lagos. So let's just bear that in mind. I think I've flogged variable names. So let's just go right into reassignment of variable. So Python is, let's keep it in mind that Python executes top down. What I mean by that is when you are using a variable and you declare it as, for example, you say A is equals to 1000, right? And then you come down and say A is equals to 10. It forgets what is in memory. It forgets that A is 1000 and it takes on the new A, which is equals to 10. So it clears off the 1000 and then it picks what the current statement. It's just like in Air Force and soldier, they obey the last command. Python is obeying your last command. The last command is A is equals to 10. And then it's giving you your output as 10. All right. So just keep that in mind, because sometimes you might be writing a code and you've forgotten that you've assigned that same variable name as something, and then you're getting an error. So you have to take note of what your assignment, how you use your variable. So you tend to create, by the time you're writing sophisticated programming, you have to create intelligent variable names so that you would know what you could just, instead of, you can just do A1 and then A2. So here you could just see that your A1 is equals to 1000, A2 is equals to 10. All right. So if you want to print A1, it's still saying it as 1000. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And also, if you're running this A, for example, we've said that our A is equals to, what's the last output of A? Let me print out A. Our last assignment of A was 10. So if you're saying A equals 10, A equals A plus A, that should be like what? 20, right? So, but if you rerun it again, it's going to be 20 plus 20, because now the new A is 20. So the next will be 20 plus 20, which gives you what? 40, and all of that. Okay. So we've talked about strings, so I'm not going to go over this. Okay, let me mention this. Let's keep in mind potential errors. For example, because of this string as a quotes, you have an apostrophe here. So it becomes complex. You can't use a single quote anymore to enclose this particular string, because it's not going to see it as she's going to see it as an error. So in this case, you have to use a double quote. So this is a very good place where you could use a double quote. So when you do that, you can see that you're getting your output. All right. Please, I want to emphasize again, please, let's make sure we use our names, our right names, because some people are having difficulty entering this meeting because their names are not correctly displayed. We can identify them. So please, when we are joining, for the sake of attendance, let's ensure we are using our name, the name that you want to have on your certificate. Use that exact name, and then, or the name that you registered with. please use that exact name to sign in so that you can get in without any issue. Thank you. All right. So I want to talk about quickly printing. I want to talk about our print statements. Now, like I mentioned earlier, normally on Jupyter Notebook, you don't need to start doing, for example, if you're using a Python IDE, so Python has its own integrated development environment. It's called IDLE. If you're not using Jupyter Notebook or you're just installing Python on its own, right? It has its own interface. So when you're using that interface, you'd most times use your print statement. So we'll be looking at that towards the end of the course when we are doing packages and all of that, so that we'll be able to understand how to use such environments as well. So, but for now, let's focus on this. When we are printing, there are different ways you can do your prints. And why are you printing? For example, your print is to output a particular results. You want to see a particular result here, like whatever is inside these brackets would be printed. But then there are different formats of printing. For example, you want to print you want to print this particular string. It's very, very easy to print. You're just enclosing your string, this particular statement. My name is Grace and I'm having fun learning. You're enclosing it in a bracket and then it's giving you your result. Now, how about a case whereby you want to have a tab, you want to do some other stylish formatting, like you want to have a tab, you want to have a new line in your display, something like this. You want to output something like this. How do you use your print statement? So there are some syntax you can use, like this /t indicates a tab. It means tab. That's, I want to give a space. So if you want more than one space, you could just do another /t. It gives you more than one space. And then if you want a new line, here I want it to break at and then there'll be a space. /n gives me a new line. If I want a double new line, I can do 2/n. And then if I want another double new line here, I can do 2/n. So that's a very good way to, display your outputs in a particular format. And then you have this is a new line. I just mentioned this new line and your tab. All right. So this is 9 o'clock. We are supposed to do another quiz before we go into indexing and slicing. Okay. So in the LMS, we have there is a particular exercise. It's called the Jupyter the introduction. Let me just go there so that I'll show you. So we are going to try your hands on that. Try your hands on this Jupyter Notebook exercise towards against next class. That it's going to tell you're going to try to test your understanding on markdowns and some other things. It's inside that notebook. So when you download it, just try it out. Try as much as possible not to run the cell, the cell that has the answer, because once you run it, you're going to clear out the answer in that notebook. So download that notebook and and do the exercise. All right. So there's another exercise that I would want you to do. So I'll be giving you 2 exercises after this lesson. We'll be doing this Jupyter Notebook exercise. There's another one that is linked. Okay, it's linked at the end, but we'll link it for tomorrow's class so that you can have access. I'm going to put the exercise here tomorrow under your Tuesday lessons. Let me just show you how the exercise look like. Okay, so you're going to do this. We're going to answer this question. I think this should be very easy. How do you do 7 raised to the power of 4? How do you split this string? So I'm going to be talking about some Python functions as well. Then how do you format this print using the print.format statement? I know I've not mentioned print formatting, but that you can do some research. So something that you're going to be doing during this program is that there's a particular skill called debugging. Like there are sometimes that you might come across some very, very difficult, problems, you are running into error, and it could just be a comma, it could just be a full stop, right? So you have to develop a tough skin for debugging, having to find out what is the problem, why am I having this error, all right? So let's take note of that as well. Some of these questions you could also research, because when in doing research, you tend to learn more, tend to find out more beyond what you're taught in class. So that's why we kind of put some questions that we just want you to research about it. So this dot format, you can find out how to print this. This is what we want to use. We want to use dot format to print the diameter of the earth is 12746, and then you'll be doing a nested list. Giving this nested list, grab the word hello. So this particular exercise, we're going to link it up for tomorrow's class in the LMS. All right. Before we take our last set of questions, our last module, let me see. There is another quiz I would like you to try your hands on. Do you have any questions? Yes, okay. You can just type your question in the Q&A. Can type your question in the Q&A while we I just want to get out the next quiz so that you'll be able to access it. If you have any questions, please drop. We'll be having 20 minutes for question and answer after this last session. Then we'll be having like an open forum where we can all ask our questions. Okay, so let's get our questions together and would ask them. Okay, for the sake of time, I want us to just let's leave out the quiz. Let me go over this last set of model variables and data. Okay, this is the on this. All right, I want us to go through indexing and slicing very quickly. Indexing and slicing. So in Python, right, there is something called indexing and slicing. And the reason why we do that is you're trying to pick all the everything in memory. Like they have a particular in a string, they have a particular location in memory. So strings are ordered sequence of characters. Like you know the integer, you know the floating point number, you know okay, someone mentioned Boolean. Boolean, I was talking about Boolean as true or false value. Oh, sorry, my screen is not showing. All right, let me share my screen again. Sorry about that. Okay, so saying that let's quickly go over indexing and slicing. All right, then I can also talk about that Python, the print formats for the sake of the exercise that we have. Okay, so indexing and slicing, we have some data types that have locations in memory, and that is, we have the lists. We have, by the time we're talking about data structures, we'll be looking at lists, dictionaries, set, tuples. That we'll be talking about in a later class, right? But for now, we're going to be focusing on string data type. And for strings are ordered sequences of characters, just like you're joining several words together, A, B, C, D. So you take note that for each of those characters, they have a particular location in memory, and there's a way you can access them. And that is what indexing means. You want to select whether it's a single character, you want to select two characters together, you want to select three characters together. It's going to give you a particular result. That's when you do your indexing and slicing. So I want us to pay attention to this. For people that are just starting off, sometimes they get this confusing. Now, when you have a word like hello, and take note that for each of the character, the index starts with 0, where H is 0, 1, E is 1, 2, the L is 2, the second L is 3, and then 0 is 4, like that. It goes on and on. We have the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the last number. Then we also have the reverse indexing, where it starts with -1. This last value starts with -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So either way, you could do the normal indexing, or you could do the reverse indexing to grab that particular word. Now, we've learned about variable assignment, right? Given a word called hello, we want to print the word, right? Now, if we just want to grab this hell, for example, we want to grab the word L. Now, our use of variable names come into play. We can just say, because we know that the word is hello, right? So what holds the word hello, right? So, and to grab that word, you use the square brackets as the symbol to pick that particular character. Then inside that square bracket, because we want to grab the second L, which is at the location 3, you just put 3, and then when you do that, so okay, because I did not run this cell. Now let's take note that, for example, if I'm just starting Python, in order to debug this error, the first thing I'm going to be looking at the error message. Just pay attention. Forget all these different things that they're writing here. Just pay attention to the last error code. It says a name error. So that tells me that there's something wrong with the name. So what is wrong with the name? It said name word is not defined. That is, I've not defined this word. I didn't run this cell. That's why I'm having that error. So that way you can know that, oh, there's something wrong with my code. So you can just do word equals hello. And then because I ran that cell, now I can easily execute this cell. And then it tells me that the word 3 at location 3 is what is hell. So how do we know? Let's try to grab the next word, which is at location 4. That would be word 4, right? Word 4, and that gives us word 0. So you can also do word 0, and that gives us what? H, right? So we'll see the reason why we are doing all of this in later class, but these are just the building blocks. These are the basics of what we need to know as we are going on, with our understanding of Python. All right, so let's go to another word like called hobby. Hobby equals reading. Now we are saying that this as the variable name hobby has taught the word reading. For example, I want to grab G. Who can tell me, how do I grab G? What is the value for G? You can just drop it in the chat if you have an answer. You cannot see my screen. Can you all see my screen? -6. Someone said 6. Great. That means some people are seeing my screen. If you can't see my screen, maybe that's the network issue. All right. So let us try. The people that said Obi, someone said -1, right? So the person is correct. So -1 is correct. Somebody said 6. Person is also correct. So I think we are getting it right. Let me see any controversial okay, Obi -1. We are all correct. All right, great. So let's move on. It's great to know that we are understanding this. Now, let's just move on to another one. Okay, I talked about the reverse indexing, right? Where you have this H0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have -1, -2, -3, -4, and 0. In a case whereby you have this hippopotamus is my friend. All right. Sorry for my funny example. It's just, it's late and some people have gone to work and, it's been, some people are even, people in India, they're supposed to be sleeping. So it's just to make life easy. And that's why I use funny examples. All right. So if you want to grab the word T, hippopo after T, who can give me the position of that word? How do you grab the word T? What's the answer? The word T. You could just drop your answer in the chat. Seven. Who else? Is there any other? Okay, everybody's saying 7. Great. Let's check it. Let's check if we are all correct. Great. So we are getting it. Now, we're going to be going to slicing. So, but there are times that you might want to get more than one character. You might want to get you want to get out friend, for example, or you want to get out hippopo. How do you slice out those words? So that brings us to slicing, where we grab subsections of a particular string. So I want you to take note that if you understand this, when we are dealing with lists, we are dealing with arrays, it's going to be very, very easy to understand. So just try to follow this. Sometimes it could be very confusing for some people, but just try to understand this. Okay, so for slicing, if you want to grab maybe a particular subsection of your word, that's when we come about slicing. And this is the formula, right? When you're grabbing the word, you state the start index, the stop index, and then the step. The starting index is where the location of the first word. For example, let me use hippopotamus as my friend. So let me just do animal. Okay, now want to get out, the first thing is to, please let's take note. The first thing is to state our variable name, which is animal. Then you have your square bracket. Then, for example, I want to grab hippopo. So there are different ways to go about it, but let me just go through the normal way as shown in the formula so that we don't get confused. The first index is what? 0. And then the next index is full column, and the next index, this is what we want to grab. That is 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when you're stopping your stop index, let's take note that your stop index does not include the index character. How do I mean? It's when you're starting at 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 1. Hippopo, 6 plus 1, that's 7, sorry. So it's index plus 1, the stop index plus 1. So you usually add 1 to the stop index. So it's so that it's going to grab the stop index for you. Because if you just stop at 6, just like you saw the other time, you're just getting out EPOP. But because we want this last index, you're going to add a 1 extra location to it. That's +1. So that's actually the format. When you're focusing on the last index, when you're getting the last index, you had +1. So let's take note of that. So the same way, if you want to extract Tamos, you take note that the first index here is what? 7. Then 8, 9, 10, 11 plus 1, which is what? 12. That gives you Tamos. That gives you Tamos. If you're stopping on the exact index, it's not going to give you Tamos. So just take note of that. All right. I hope we all get that. Okay. Let me ask a question. Can we slice out friend? What is the index for friend? If you want to get out friend, you can drop a message in the chat. So this notebook is actually the notebook is in the classroom. So I'm just trying to explain, because those notebooks are there in the classroom for you to go through, but there are times that you might not really understand what it's all about. So I'm going through the notebook so that you have a basic understanding of it, right? So it's attached on the LMS. Yeah. So for friend, I'm waiting for your output for friend. Somebody said he's not getting it yet. We'll do one more example so that you can understand it very well. Friend, do we have any other friend? I like some very, we have so many varied examples. So I'm going to use all your examples so that you can see the results. Okay, so we have -6, 16.2. Please, let's also take note of the naming convention. Python is very, very case sensitive. If it's animal with capital letter A and animal with small letter A, they are 2 different words. So let's take note. So it's actually animal with small letter case, starting with small letter A. Okay, so the first person said minus -6. -6. So we can see the answer that -6 only extracts just one of the variables. I mean, one of the characters. So why is -6? Is the person starting with a reverse index, that is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. That is -6. But I want to extract friends, so it's not just -6, right? So let us look at other ones. We have 1622. Thank you. Let's try that. 1622. Amazing. Clap, 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 clap. Thank you, 1622. For everybody that mentioned 1622. Thank you. Let's try -1, -5. Oops. So who can tell me why we're having this? It's not actually slicing anything. Why? Because we want to get out friend, right? So if you had said -5, -1, even that -5, this is -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is not even actually it. But that minus that is not actually it. Maybe you wanted to say -6, -1. It's not still giving us the friend. Just to this. Yeah, -60. would give us. But I don't want to confuse you. There are different ways to get to your answer. So I just want you to stick with what is very simple at the moment so that we don't get confused. But -6 is 0, right? Is actually -6 0 or -6 full stop. So usually when you have 0, usually when you have 0, right? It's when you are getting to the end of a particular word, you might not have to put the last index when you're slicing. So I didn't want to mention that so that you don't get confused, right? But then okay, let's move further. We have less than 16 minutes. My screen is static. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen now? Okay, I guess you can. I should take that as a yes. So let us continue so that we can finish up with variables today. We can just touch a bit on lists then before we take our questions. Okay, for persons that are still not finding it, like you don't yet understand, let me try another example. Now this is another string called alpha ABC to J. Now you want to extract A to E, and you know that your first index is A, right? Which is 0. Your first index A is 0. Then the next one is 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to extract A to E, but then you don't stop at 4. You have to add 1. That's the formula. You stop at the corresponding index where you want to slice. You're not going to stop at this so that you can get out all of your outputs. You can get the A to E. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to say alpha 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, that is 5. So you're going to add 1 to the output, and that gives you A to E. You can either write it this way, because anytime you're starting with 0, you might ignore the 0. You might not have to write the 0. You could just do full colon and 5, and that still give you the same answer. So either way, whether you're doing it this way or you're doing it from A to E or you're doing it from F to J, you might have to skip the last index. For example, maybe you have a very long word, you'll have some other words like this. And then I want to extract everything from K downward. Okay, I want to extract everything from H downward. Where all I just need to know is the index of H. So I can say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right? That is 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all I just need to know is 7. So I can just say alpha 7 and then my full column. Okay, sorry. Now you need to take note of something, right? I didn't load this before running that, so that's why I'm having that error. So you can see that all I just need to know is the first word I want to slice out, which is 7, and then everything to the end. 7 and everything to the end gives me the result. Okay, I believe we all understand this so that we can move further to other things. Okay, let me talk about the step. Now, there are times that you want to extract words in increments. For example, let me use this one called name, gracefully. Let's try to come early so that we don't miss out of what is happening in class. We'll be doing more of our quizzes and more interactions so that we can get to have a feel of our understanding of some of those concepts. So let's try to come on time, and we can benefit from the class. in full. All right. So for the step, now there are times that I just want to extract words. Like I want to extract G, C, U. I just want to, okay, I want to extract the words in like in steps of 2, G, A, E. So what I'm going to do is the first index, which is 0, and the last index, where do I want to stop? I want to stop at E, right? So that E plus 1, that's 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, which is 5. Then my step is 2. So what is going to give me? It's going to give me a G, it's going to give me an A, and it's going to give me E. So that's what the step is used for. It is used to control the step. That's how many times you want it to skip the character, the following character. So that way you're able to like have flexibility in your in extracting some of these characters. So I want you to know that very soon you understand why we are doing all of this. Now it might not really be you might just wonder, okay, why do we have to do indexing? Why are we slicing and all of that? We will be using it at most especially when you're doing you're writing functions, you want to control, there are some things that you want to print out and there's some codes you want to write. So you'll be needing this at that point. Okay, so it's good to have that this basic understanding. So let me take one more example on the step. For example, you want to print out okay, let's print out the word jar. That's in the step of 2. That is A. We are skipping 1, 2. Now here, this is what's happening here. The first is A, right? And then 1, 2, 3. We are skipping the next 3. Let me run it. We want to skip it in words of in threes. That is 0, 1, 2. The next word is J. 1, 2, 3. The next word is A. So here you are skipping the words in 3, inclusive of the first word. I don't know if you understand what I'm explaining. So here, right, you're saying the first starting word is A, right? And I want to end at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 plus 1, that is you're ending at this. You want to take them at intervals of 3. So it's going to take the first word A, then the next word is what? J. It counts 3, it counts in 3. 1, 2, 3. The next word is what? A. And that's why you have the word aja. I don't know if that is clear. Can we take one exercise on that? Okay, you want to do a reverse for which of the step, please? Okay, the aja. Let me do a repeat. Like I explained, let me go over this simple one, the grace. That's the 2 steps. So that would form a background of understanding the 3 step and the 4 step and the rest. Now here, you want to extract it in a step of what? 2. So the first word is what? 0. The first position is 0, position 0. And because I want to extract between grace, this between G and F. So the next stop is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1. That's 5. So this is what I'm extracting first. So let me do it step by step so that you can understand what I'm saying. Name. So when you do 0, name 0 is what? G, right? Now I want I want to extract grace, right? What's it going to give me? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, that's 5. That gives me grace. But then I just don't want grace. I want GAE. Like I want it in a step of 2. That is 2 characters. After 2 characters, the next word. After 2 characters, the next word. So that's what you're actually doing. So because I want it in 2-character interval. I'm going to use 2 and it's going to give me GAE. Are we clear with that? If we are clear with that, let's go to the 3-step. Now here, our focus is between the 1st and the 7th character. That is 0, 1. Let me bring it out so that you're going to see it clearly. 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it's going to be exclusive of this character because this is it's one to get from Abuja lag. This is Abuja lag, right? That's 0 to 8 Abuja lag. But then we want it at the step of 3. And what is the step of 3? That is going to count 3 characters. The first word A, then the next 3, next word J, then the next 3, then the next word A. So when you do it in 3 steps, it's going to give you Aja. Did we get the explanation now? I hope we get that. All right, great. Okay, so let's just finish this quickly before we take some questions. I was thinking we'll be able to do lists. Let's see how far we can touch on that. Okay. Now we're going to be talking about some string methods. Methods are actions that you can call on an object in form of dots. The name of the method, like most of this data type, like you have the integer, you have your the integer, the floating point numbers, the string, the booleans, and what have you. For strings, you have some methods that are associated with it. For lists, you have methods that are associated with it. You have for dictionaries, you have methods that are associated. So just think about method as some functions that maybe somebody has actually coded and you can reuse in Python, because Python programming, right? You have so many packages in Python programming. And what I mean by package is that there are some reusable codes that you don't have to, like now, you don't have to start adding 1 plus 2 together. There's a function called sum that you can use. So instead of you just writing normally you should just say 1 plus 2 or 1 plus 3. 1 plus 3 should give you 4, right? That is if you are calculating it by yourself. But somebody has actually written a function called sum that you just have to write sum and give it 1, 2. Oops, okay. Int object is not iterable. So what's the, okay, let me see the there is a function in NumPy called sum. I don't want to go into this so that I don't confuse you. It's still even an error. Okay, let me not go there so that I don't have to confuse you on some things. Let me just stick to what we have for today, and then we can focus on that later. All right. So what I was actually explaining is that there are some functions that you can apply in Python that are already defined for you, like the type function that I used earlier on. The type function, when you do tab, it tells you the type of function it is. It tells you that you can use it with any, for example, you want to find out the integer type, it tells you that it's an integer. If it's a string, sum, it tells you that this is a string. So this is a function that you're applying on different variables. But then a method is something that you apply, you can call off of a particular object. And usually we use it as in a dot format. Like, instead of you writing some codes yourself, it had been already written for you in Python. You can easily use that. So for example, this is a string called basic, right? And if you want to change everything in this string to uppercase, you could just say basic.upper. So normally, if you don't have this dot upper function, you would have written some set of codes to give you this output. But because of this, I mean, this method has been written for, there's a method like that in Python called .upper that you can apply on strings that automatically turns lowercase characters to uppercase. So these are those are types of methods you can apply on strings. So we have the dot upper, you have the dot lower, and you have so many other string functions, and that's what we'll be looking at as well. We have the dot upper function, which converts it to uppercase. We have the dot lower. For example, now you want to convert this to a lowercase, you could just do your dot lower, and then you see that it's back at the lowercase. I was trying to write a function here. Let's not look at that. When we get to functions class, we'll focus on that. Then you can also have your split. There's something called dot split function. And what that does is it takes a string and it splits it into different elements in a list. This is a list. We'll be talking about lists in our next class. We won't be able to touch on lists today because of our time. We're talking about lists in our next class. So dot split, what it does is that the name of your variable dot split, you're telling me that I want you to split it with where you have your comma. That is, I want you to split this variable where you have comma. That's your splitting condition, right? So when you do dot split, so it's going to separate Abuja and Lagos into a separate string, and that's what it's doing here. You can see that Abuja is in one element, and then you have Lagos as another element. So sometimes you could just say, okay, I want it to be, I want my splitting condition to just be a space. Maybe you have a space, and then you want it to split it based on the space. Then you can split your word as a space. For example, you could just, for example, you have a long list of fruits, where you have oranges, or maybe don't let me just have a word, just a single word, banana. You have watermelon, you have mango, you have apple, and like that. For example, you have this long string of word, and then you're trying to do, when you're doing data manipulation, you appreciate all of these methods, because there are times that you might have a cell where you have the first name and the last name in a particular cell, and you want to split them into two different columns. Like, you want to split the first name and the last name. If for people that work with spreadsheets a lot, you can use some Excel functions to do that, right? So in Python, you just need to write a function that has dot splits involved. So you can just set the splitting strategy to be a space. And then when you do fruits, let's do fruits dot splits. Now it's telling me that name error. So that's the way to find out what is happening. That is, I did not run this. You can see this cell doesn't have a number, so I have to run this first. sorry, it's supposed to be in a string. Now you can see where it's saying the attribute list object has no attributes called split. I made a mistake. I went to put it in a list format. So I'm supposed to, it has to be in a string format. And that's why I'm having that error. So now you can see that it took each of those fruits, it took them, we put them in the separate elements. We have orange, the first element, banana, comma, watermelon, comma, mango, and then apple. So that's another method for that you can use on a string. So we have mentioned .upper, .lower, .split. There are several others, but then let's just focus on that. So I like focus on this one. You could use any splitting criteria. We could use a space. You could use a particular, like here, you can see that you're using a character as your splitting criteria. That is, you want it to split everywhere you have a, let it be a separate element. So that's what you're telling it to do. And when you do that, you can see that hippopotamus is the first one. And then the last word is Moss is my friend. And here you can see that it's splitting it based on that, right? So those are the basic splitting commands. We're going to be wrapping up very quickly. I'm supposed to stop now, but let me just finish this notebook so that I know that we are done with variables and data type, and we can take some questions before we close the class. Can you all see my screen? Somebody's saying you cannot see my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, I believe it's a yes. I didn't see any response. Okay, I hope we are not sleeping. I think we should do one more quiz so that we can get everybody awake if you're sleeping. All right. Okay, so let's just wrap up with this so that we can take questions. All right. Now, I want to talk about some printing formats. Now, you know what we were doing earlier was just the basic print statement where you can just print a word and then it returns everything in that particular string format. But there are times that you want to make your print statement dynamic. You don't want it to be static. You want to have some flexibility in your print statement. And that's where the dot formats come into play. So for example, you have a variable called username called Grace and a password called this. And then you want to print this in this format where you have welcome Grace, your password is, like you want this results, welcome Grace, and your password is this. So the format statement is it helps you to perform something formerly known as string interpolation, essentially when you're inserting variables when printing a string. So what you're doing is wherever you want that name to be, this name, the username to be, you replace it with a curly bracket. Wherever you want your variable to be, you replace it, like here now, newbie, because I want the name Grace, right? I'm going to replace, okay, let me just print out what I want exactly so that we can be on the same page. All right, I hope we are still following. So there are several ways you can print a particular value. But the reason why that format is good is that it brings some sort of flexibility to your printing. You can print in several using different formats, not just your string and your character. You can even print in decimal and all of that. So, but we're going to read up some content, but I just want to show you the basics, how it works. So this is exactly what I want to print, right? But then I don't want to add coding because sometimes I want the username to always change. For example, you want to write a function whereby somebody would always ask for the username, and then you can easily print out the person's name. So here, you can just say, welcome. Wherever you see Grace, you put a curly bracket. Welcome, curly, and your password is curly dot format. Then what do you want the first curly bracket to be? That's the username. And what do you want the password to be? Right? And that's the password. So that prints out. It gives you the password. I don't know if you get that, but let me explain it again. So instead of you writing your name, Grace, you say welcome, the first curly bracket. That's where I want the first the name to be, and your password is the next curly bracket, and then dot format. You can even have Grace here. You can even have your Grace here, but it's good to use a variable name because Grace can always change. So what is the name you want to replace with this curly brackets? You want to replace anything that's inside the username with the curly brackets. And that is, in this case, is Grace. And then you want to have a password as well at the end of that particular statement. So this statement is going to replace, when Python is reading its command, it's going to come to welcome, curly, then it looks at what does curly means. It looks at the format. The format is username. What's the username? It comes here and says, oh, the name is Grace. Replaces with Grace, and your password is. Then Python understands this word as there's a formatting going on here. So it comes to this dot format and it picks up the passwords. In memory, it looks at what is password in my memory. My password is this, and then it prints out the particular value. Welcome, Grace, and your password is this. So I believe we understand that. Let's just do one more, and we can look at booleans, and we'll be good. I want us to finish at 9:50 so that we can give time for questions. Let's do one more. Here, your hobby is learning. Language is Python. And you want to write, it's always fun learning Python. So how are we going to write it? You're going to say it's always fun because I want hobby to be, learning to be here. I'll put a color brace. That is, I want to format learning, and I want to format Python. I put under color brace dot format. What is the first format? Hobby, and the next format is language, and that gives us our output. It's always fun learning Python. There are many ways to write a format. You can write it like this as well. That is, instead of you declaring it outside, you could say your hobby equals learning, language equals Python, and then you tell it that, okay, my hobby, fun hobby, then language, it still prints out the same thing. So there are several ways to do your print statement. Finally, right, I want to talk about decimal places, formatting numbers. The number here, the good thing about format is you can even use it to print out decimal points. So by default, when you use your full, just empty braces, it prints out the exact number you want it to print out. But here, in case you want it to print out just one floating point number, you could use a semicolon dot 1f inside your curly brace, and then automatically format this number as a floating point number. It formats it to one decimal place, and then you have your output. If you want it in two decimal places, it increases the decimal points. 1 in 3, it increases it. In 4, it increases it. So that's the beauty about using formatting. Okay. I talked about Boolean, and so this has come to the end of variables and data type. Here, you can see that usually when you see Boolean in place, when you're having comparison operators, for example, you want to compare two statements, like here you're saying 1 is greater than 2, of course, it executes to false because 1 is not greater than 2, right? So that's where you see your Boolean operators in play. So when you're writing your functions, you're writing some of your classes, you find out that all of these things you're learning will come into play. So at this point, I would like to stop to take questions. Do we have questions? Questions? It's question. WhatsApp group where the notebooks can be sent. The notebooks are on the LMS. So you have access to this notebook, except for the ones I'm just writing in class. But then all of what I'm saying here, they are on the LMS. Yeah, so let me just show you. Like this particular module, I'm on module 3, variables and data types. So if you go to the LMS, I go to module 3. Okay, sorry, module 2, variable and data type. Under this video, this is the notebook. You can download it and you can run it on your system. All right, the other notebooks too are there as well. So if we use WhatsApp or any other channel, we might miss out all of this, some of our notebook. And then because of formats, sometimes when you convert this note, when you send your notebook around, it changes formats. And sometimes I think some people were having issues downloading some of the notebook, maybe because of the compatibility with their browsers. I dropped a message for somebody on Telegram. The person was trying to download it and was turning it into JSON format. Thank you, Otabil. Yes. Then in that case, what you just need to do is just do Control S, save it as .ipynb on your system. Save that HTML format. You know, on your browser you have where you can save. You can just do Control S, or depending on the type of OS you're using. Once you save it, it downloads as a Python notebook, and then you can access it. So yeah, so that's how you can do that. Do we have any other questions? Can we go over float formatting? Okay, let me see if there are no other questions first because of our time before I take that. Do we have any questions? Okay, somebody's saying, okay. Just like I mentioned earlier, save it as save it Control S, and then on your browser Control S. When you download it, when you open it, Control S, and then it saves as a notebook. All right, what's the difference between code, Markdown, and raw? Great. Okay, I explained earlier, the code cell, like I mentioned, that the Jupyter Notebook, it's an application that runs on a web browser, on a local host on your system, and it has different formats. This notebook now, not what you're seeing here, right? This is a markdown. Here you can write all your nicely fine format. Like when we do GitHub, I'm sure maybe some of us, of course, some of us would have, we have GitHub profiles, but for some new persons that are into this, there's a page called GitHub, right, where you can host and store some of your codes, and there you have the opportunity to write your README markdown page. So there are so many ways to write markdown pages, like beautiful markdowns, and what you can also do that here using Jupyter Notebook, and I explained some of the formats to you in class. So here you can do your hash, which is talking about the highest case string, where you have the H4 tag. Then this is like the normal text format. There are several formats, so that's what is going on here in the Markdown. Then you have your code cell. This is also a Markdown. This is a Markdown. This cell is the Python where you execute your Python code. So Jupyter Notebook has Python integrated in it. And here you have the code cell where you can do all your print statements, and then, and it executes as well. 1 + 2, and it executes as well. Then also you'll have the raw. This one is just raw. It's just a normal format. It's not executing, and it's just telling you, just leave me as raw. I mean, it's just a raw format. So sometimes you use it when you want to show maybe a particular code, and then you want it raw. You don't want it in Markdown. You don't want it to execute as code. And so it's just in a very raw format. And anybody printing this page is going to see it as it is, like a code. So that's the raw format. So I hope you get the differences. So let me just change this to a code cell. All right. So are there other questions? Do we have any other questions? So please, let's just go about the LMS. We sent out invites to everybody to join the learning management system. If you're not there, it's a web page. It's on the web. It's on Data Gen Z website. There is a portal there where we have some of so we had extra resources aside from what we are learning in class, because no matter how much we are taught in class, there's still so much to learn. We have a lot of things to learn. So there's a book that we'll be reviewing. There's Python for everybody. The book is also on the LMS. It's a resource that is very, very good. So most times it's good to also read books as we are learning along. Yeah. So on that platform, you have that Python for everybody book as well. So you can access it and go over the resources there. Yeah, so we had to put that together too, because for the sake of organizing what we are learning, so that we can be able to follow a pathway, a plan. All right. So at this point, going over float formatting, let me just it's 10 o'clock. So this class is recorded. We'll get the recording as well. We'll have access to it, and you can always go over what we explained. Because of our time and because of some other persons that have to we don't want to extend our time. We want to be very, very on time with what we are doing. So we'd have to, take it, do a stop here. And thank you, everyone. So if you have any question, we have the mail that you were sent. There's this Slido Q&A for this week. You could ask your questions there, and then we would always respond. We are using that to keep track, so that there's some questions that some people might have asked before, and then because it's maybe on the WhatsApp group, or on the Telegram group, it's lost in the conversation. You're lost in the conversation. That's why we have the Slido app, so you can always go there to review other questions that have been asked, and then if it's something new, you could ask. If it's something that has been asked before, you could just see the response and it will be attended to. So that would do. It's past 1 minute past now. I want you all to have a wonderful rest or a beautiful morning, whichever time zone wherever you are. And please I know this is a lot of sacrifice, and I'll tell you that it's going to pay off very, very, very well for you. So just try and put your mind to this. If you have any challenge, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always available to attend to you. Try as much as possible to get on the LMS. And if you didn't get the mail, please send us an email. We'll try to check and we'll revert to you. All right. And let us all have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody. Okay.